Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Crostini Dijonnaise. That's right, I needed to make some crostini to go with that duck rillette you recently saw, or hopefully saw. And I also usually garnish with some Dijon mustard on the side. So I thought to myself, if I could get the mustard in the crostini, we could save a whole step. So that's what I was attempting to do here, and for a first try, I thought they came out very well. Although with some suggestions from me, I'm sure you'll improve on them. But anyway, in the meantime, let me show you what I did. And of course, like any crostini recipe, it starts with some stale bread. So I have a 2-day-old baguette. 1 day old's probably fine. You just don't want to use really fresh bread. So I'm going to go ahead and start slicing this with my serrated knife. It's really the only appropriate tool for this job. And as you can see, I'm going to cut them at that classic 45-degree angle. That just makes the crostini a little longer. And because I'm trying to do a mustard crostini, I decided to make these a little thicker than usual. So usually crostini is just made with oil, so you don't have to worry about the bread getting soggy. But since we are incorporating the mustard, I figured I should make them a little thicker than usual just in case. So usually I go about 1/4 inch for regular crostini. Here, I think we're pushing 3/8. So you're going to cut up some baguette, and we'll set that aside while we make what they call in the business a compound butter. So I'm going to take some high quality, room temperature unsalted butter, and we're going to season that up a little bit. And to that, we're going to add a little bit of cayenne, a little pinch of freshly ground black pepper, and a little pinch of salt. And then it's time to Dijonnaise this up with a big spoon of Dijon mustard. But wait, that's not all. We're going to introduce a second mustard, good old-fashioned American yellow mustard. So we'll also add some of that straight out the squeeze bottle. And the official story here is Dijon's in there for the flavor, and the yellow mustard's in there for the color and aroma. And at that point, I'm going to grab a little spatula, and we're going to smush this together. Now, because we got kind of an oil and water thing going on here, this probably would be better to mix with a whisk, but then it gets all stuck in the whisk, and that's kind of annoying. So since I'm going to use this little spatula to spread the butter on the bread anyway, I figured I would just try to mix it with this, and it worked. So it's going to take you a minute, but as long as your butter is room temperature and not too cold and not too stiff, you should be able to mix this fairly easily, okay? So I kept at it until I had a beautifully smooth mixture, or at least smooth enough to spread. So that looks good right there. And at that point, we're ready to start swiping this on our bread slices. And we're going to want to be generous here, and you're going to want to do both sides for sure. And like I said, this is the first time I made these, and I thought I was being generous, but I really wasn't, I guess. Because as you'll see, these could have used a little more fat. But anyway, we're going to spread that mustard butter on both sides of the bread, and we'll line them up on a lined baking sheet. And by the way, raise your hand if it totally drives you crazy that I'm not finishing off a row before starting another one. And if you do have your hand up, I'd like to say, there's all different kinds of order, okay? And then once we do have all our bread spread with that mustard butter, or beurre Dijonnaise if you prefer. But anyway, once those are spread with the butter, we're going to go ahead and pop those in the center of a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes, at which point we're going to pull those out and flip them over. Now, generally, regular crostini would be getting pretty close in 15 minutes because they would just be soaked with oil and or butter. But here, because half our mixture is mustard, these are going to take longer to dry out and crisp up. So we're going to want to flip these over. And you can see what I'm talking about when I mentioned earlier. I thought I was being generous with the butter, but I really needed to put a little more on. So I tried to scrape the bowl and put on any extra I could. But as I'll explain on the blog, I think I'm actually going to have you drizzle these a little with oil. And then we're going to pop that back in for another 10 to 15 minutes or until perfectly golden brown and crisp. And when you pull them out, they really should look something like this. And of course, if you are going to serve them with a pate or a duck rillettes like I am, you should probably let them cool down. But man, these smell so good. I really want one. I wish one would break. That was unfortunate. Let me eat that one. And here you go, a little flavor for your ear. Oh yeah. And while it was very delicious plain, it was extraordinary under our recently produced duck rillette. Just an absolutely perfect pairing. So the holidays are right around the corner, and that means entertaining season. Parties, hors d'oeuvres, appetizers. You remember last year. So I'm sure you're going to have things to serve on crostini, and if you do, maybe you'll want to give these a try. Hey, who wants to serve crostini when you could be serving crostini Dijonnaise? I mean, say it a few times. I think it will grow in you, okay? So I really hope you give those a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.